All right, let's jump into things. Where we at? It's 10:06. It's not 1:50 p.m. It's 10:06 on the 19th of August, so Tuesday session here. And look, there's not really too much to say news-wise. Like we knew that this week's going to be sort of quiet week, sort of data-wise, and really the sort of the big movers at the moment, kind of like more sort of, I guess, anticipation, positioning, whatever you want to call it, for Jackson Hole at the end of the week, and obviously all the sort of stuff going on with sort of Zelensky and Ukraine, Russia, yada yada. Um, not on that sort of front, doesn't really seem to have been a great deal. Zelensky did sort of meet with Trump last night. There was a whole bunch of sort of like European leaders over there, and it kind of sort of seems, I mean, obviously here for the charts and that, but just on the thought of it, it seems that they're trying to sort of broker some sort of deal with assurities, basically kind of like the protection of NATO, but without being NATO. So I don't see what the point, what the difference is with this kind of thing, but look, regardless of it all, that's the kind of direction they're sort of pushing for. They've met Zelensky. Zelensky sort of met Trump now, and so I guess the ball is back in Trump's court. Well, always he seems to be playing sort of mediator to. So just having a look at this to sort of play the go-between between the two of them and sort of get back to Putin. So not really anything that's been okay, crazy and big sort of movement for the markets. I did see gold sort of again sort of dump this morning on open. Seems to be a bit the theme of it all, but of course, we'll cover all these things sort of when we get to the charts. So as I said, not really anything over overnight. Westpac consumer sentiment 9:48. Very odd time for this to be sort of coming out. 5.7, massively up on what it was previously. Um, let's see how this goes because ASX is sort of dumping off off this as well. So with such great sort of consumer sentiment up there and that, they're certainly trying to bail off that. I mean, look, it's a whisker off the highs, but that's still the case. But as you can see, absolute barren wasteland of sort of data. Nothing through Asia, like literally nothing through Asia at all. Not even sort of low tier or different sort of countries or anything, or at least not on the ones that I've got marked here. And then tonight you got CAD CPI. Again, starting to tick up there a little bit, so still staying a little bit sticky for that, but that's not really anything too much of our sort of concern. Moving forward, building permits, building housing starts, again, not really market moving data. Bauman speaking tonight. So, as we know, Bauman's one of the dissenters, so that can be a sort of little bit negative US dollar. So, if we do see some sort of continuation of that sort of recovery move with US dollar, DXY, then that could put a little bit of a sort of handbrake on things as that does move through. But yeah, that's about it. And it's actually speaking twice. Geez, how much have we got to say? Anyway, let's see how that sort of plays out. Onto the charts. DXY, so great sort of recovery, and this is the call from the weekend where we were down over here, saying that sort of like, I expected pretty much a bit of a sort of a pushback off that sort of dribble down price action on Friday's session. So if we get down onto a more realistic sort of time frame, you can see, I mean, this is PPI, and okay, with news, uh, data driven, bang, moves up through here. These moves like this that are just pretty much one way, just unrelenting, just dribble, 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 dribble all the way down. We had retail sales spike up and down and that. Yesterday, well, sorry, not yesterday, but over the weekend, I said, look, this for me was the confirmation. Because it sort of started a little bit back and forth. But once it started, got going and took out that spike high from retail sales where we had the alert, that was to me, okay, look, this is actually sort of moving up. And really, as you can see, it just sort of consolidated up above the high. So it's respecting those previous levels very well. Like, as you can see, it was looking at these levels here on the way down with its been support here, resistance here, kind of pretty much called there, and then bang up there. So as you can see, there's a nice sort of to and fro with the support resistance, and likewise we're seeing the same over here at the moment. Now that it's got up on top of this side and sort of consolidating out the top side over here. So consolidating at the highs of its bounds, not too bad. We do see with these things that they sort of say sort of like, excuse me. All right, sorry. Just had to jump off and manage a position there pretty quickly. Just had gold sort of fly straight back up on that. So where are we at actually with this? So look, as you can see, it's sort of quite a deep sort of correction. If we get rid of this, just so you can see easier, we've got 78% retracement of that move off the lows. That was around the PPI. And then if we chuck that back on there, the drop down through Friday also back up around that sort of 78%. So very deep swings going through here with the market at the moment. It is sort of consolidating, so it does look like it may want to. And if we actually drag this across, you can see again that this is a little support area for the market, and it's found itself some sellers at this point here. So look, we're only a couple of minutes into the session, so it's not really too much to take away at the moment. I would say, look, actually, I was going to drag a little triangle across this, which I guess we can do, but that's not really. I wouldn't be hanging my hat too much on that. I would say still, you just want to see continuation. So levels above here, obviously just taking out last night's high, so above the 78. So just chuck a little alert here. So continuation to test the high. So above sort of 98.2 and that, you're probably looking up around that sort of 98.3. Again, this sort of little thought, I was like, oh yeah, look, if it rallies up and that, it's not going to go through here without before the data. Well, it didn't even get close to it, it just shot straight back down, but we can reuse this. A breakthrough here, that's kind of the direction that I'm looking for with it all. I do expect, like always, when it takes a while to get back to a position like this, you're going to see a reaction from the market. And this is a good sort of adoption for sort of trading plan, really, in my opinion, as well. Because, these kind of things, if you're in a bad position, it uses all this, like, think about it, it's using all this energy to get back up to this level over here. You know, it's going to sell down. I mean, we've seen the sellers have been here previously. They're going to give it another shot from here. People long, they're going to be taking profit because it's a decent level, because you can see that the market, for whatever reason, valued it at this point as the highest high they wanted to take it. So should we sort of see get back up here? I expect a reaction, but it's all about that second effort. Excuse me. If we see the buyers push it up here, sells will move in. If we see that the whoops, if we see that the buyers can sort of then sort of push up their sort of their bid, and we can find a little base up here, or even if it does, I mean, look, it doesn't have to be that high. It can still be just a retest of this obviously resistance zone. But if you can see a continuous push from buyers, buyers are moving up, buyers are moving up, buyers are moving up, buyers are moving up, all the way through here, that's your indication that the second effort coming through this zone is more likely the time that you're going to break through. You very rarely, unless it's like some sort of drastic sort of news-driven sort of occasion where things can just blow through and they sort of disregard the technicals a bit, like we saw with copper, just for reference. Got a whole bunch of levels all the way through here. They didn't care about it all. They just chopped straight through it all. That's what I'm sort of talking about. That's data or news-driven kind of bits of price action. But at the moment, what we're looking at, get back onto what we're talking about here. Most likely with these things, they're not going to go through first time. So it's all about that second effort, just like you're playing footy and that. It's always about the second effort. So we'll see sort of what happens here. Obviously, this is looking like it wants to sort of dribble back down here a little bit at the moment. Look, with all these sort of, whoops, sorry, just going to manage a position here. All right, so I just had ASX sort of dump down about 40 points or so not too bad. Anyway, so where are we at? So yeah, it's all about that second effort. So at the moment, obviously, it's still, it looks like a little bit of a negative start to it all, but look, it's no news, so there's nothing to sort of really drive it. Look, we could just see this thing dribble back down here. I think sort of till we get a bit more sort of clarification of what's happening with um, uh, like the whole sort of Ukraine situation, we might be sort of at the mercy of having these things just sort of like swing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But all in all, I do think we are looking topside. We're looking for some US dollar strength to be sort of coming in soon. But again, that's not to sort of say it can't have these deep sort of corrections along the way. But as you can see, the buyers are slowly pushing up, but we've obviously still got the sellers sort of moving down here. So this could just be ending up as a bit of a sort of tighter push, meaning we could get a pullback down to these lower levels, 90, sort of 97, 95, these kind of things down here before we see buyers step in here a little bit. But for the time being, consolidating the highs of the bounce. I think this is a nice little breakout box, actually. I think this is more likely going to give us our direction than this little triangle. Which you can see it's obviously respecting both sides of that support down there. So a break underneath 98, we'll probably look for a little bit of a cooler sort of session coming back down to these levels over here. But should we sort of push through to the top side here, which it does favor because obviously this is consolidating. So, you know, consolidations favor the direction that it's actually come into it. So obviously we're moving as a positive note. Consolidated favors the idea that we're going to break up a little bit higher. But you know, we've seen that market loves to sell US dollar on almost anything. So yeah, it'd be interesting to sort of see how this one sort of plays out. All right, so on to Aussie. Aussie has again sort of like made a bit of a sort of effort to sort of come up through yesterday. So where were we over the weekend? That's right, had a little bit of a pullback into end of like you know of its rally kind of thing into the end of the week. Hit into this triangle, sort of horizontal zone, and obviously, bang, you can see played out well here. So I think this is very much, pretty much setting up for at least a test underneath 40, 64.80, which is the call from the weekend. We're seeing almost like another little sort of flag set up here. I mean, how many flags can you have? But it's almost like a flag within a flag, I suppose. But look, all of this sort of stuff is the predicated on the break of below 64.80. It's pretty sort of clear air. You got a little bit of support into 70 down over here, but more likely you're probably going to see this thing, if we chuck it onto a 4 hour, move down towards testing these 64.50s. So I think that's probably sort of where it wants to go, but of course, you know, 64.80 is going to be the trigger as sort of called for the weekend on the weekend. So this thing is certainly slowly trying to come back in that because obviously Aussie has been such a buy the dip thing pretty much all year, but certainly through this whole grind period here, you know, people just automatically, it's low, let's buy it up. Boom, it's low, let's buy it up. I think eventually that's going to come back and sort of test a few people. So these are the levels that I'm really looking at, and certainly if you break down below 64, you know, 64.10 really, 64.15, but you know, to be on the safe side, underneath 64, we do have a bit of support back around this, you know, 63.80s level. There's a bit of forward thinking because obviously we're a fair way off here at the moment. But should we sort of come back down over here, I think that's where we're going to start to see deeper correction because you do have this sort of uh, megaphone pattern that is sort of setting up, and you know, should this thing to have continued, you would have wanted to see it sort of progress through up to sort of mid 66s, but obviously we're seeing, you know, top bottom. This particular feed doesn't actually sort of come up here, but I've got another feed where this actually makes connection here. But the idea is, you know, top bottom, top bottom, top bottom, bottom, like it should have sort of been coming up over here. The fact that it's then gone to do it and then failed, that's a break of the structure, and that puts the pressure onto those most recent lows, which is that sort of 64.20, to sort of really confirm that, you know, you're seeing the sellers here, sellers are moving down and they're pushing and trying to sort of add pressure to sort of get this thing down underneath 64, and that's when I reckon we'll probably see a little bit of a deeper correction back into, like, say, possibly even the 62s, but that's sort of like, you know, maybe a month, 2 months sort of call, but, you know, these things, they can sort of pop up, definitely. So that's a further outlook of it all. What we're looking for short term, as I just said, 64.80. I think that until we can see a sort of a depletion of buyers at this level, you can see they're holding it, big bounce, they're holding it, smaller bounce, they're holding it, smaller bounce. Should we go through 64.80, 64.50 is the next sort of target underneath there. Gold, this was what I was just managing just before. So I sold partials on gold down somewhere over here yesterday. And I was like, look, I'll hold the rest, And of course, we got that big, massive squeeze up through here. Same thing this morning. Like, you know, I'm like, oh, surely this is the time. But no, I actually got off at 28 here. And as you can see, bang, moving back up. And this is the thing. It's sort of like, you know, with a couple of these assets, I'm sort of like, okay, maybe this is the time. Maybe we've caught the top here or whatever. You know, it doesn't matter. Like, you know, well, it does matter, of course. But you're here to get paid. Well, I'm here to get paid. And if it comes down here and I sell at 28 and it goes back up to 37, that to me is a win. Well, it's definitely a win because there's always the idea that maybe this is the one to sort of come down here, and I do believe this is the course that we are looking at. I am looking at sort of 33.10. That rally yesterday was actually fairly decent, and so the thought today was, is today going to be the same? I mean, we got the body fill. There's a little line here, as you can see from this big move here. There's body fill. That's why I sort of jumped out of this. Actually, got out a little bit early, 28. But excuse me. Uh, Once this actually sort of confirms down underneath here, so let's just put a little alert under here. Okay, targeting 310. Only $15 move down once you get underneath that there. But what I was sort of saying is, like, you're here to get paid, and it'd be nice to sort of have shorts from up here, and you don't have to, well, somewhat don't have to think about it. And yeah, it's I'm still in profit, still in profit, still in profit. But depends what you're doing and your style with it all. I'm here to trade, and what I mean, if I get in here and then I can get back in here and then get out here, or get in here and get out here, and do it a couple of times over, it's a lot easier to catch a $10 move or a $10 move 10 times over than it is to catch $100 move. Because, these things, yes, you can get onto these good winners here, but, realistically, the whole time that you're in this short here, you could be trailing your stops. I mean, again, it depends what your style is. You could be trailing your stops underneath these things, or so behind these things, get whipped out just to see it move down further, see all your nice profit all sort of disintegrate. I mean, look, I'm sure there's people that sort of got it. This would have been NFP the other week. They would have been here, but they're just seeing their profits just, deplete, come all the way back down and that. So, in and out is definitely sort of, in my opinion anyway, my experience, my style, the way to sort of move forward and bank a lot better. Anyway, point is that it's holding this little support line down over here. Tested underneath once, tested down underneath the second time. I think this is going to be a little bit of a flare up. I think it's sort of like myself, I took some profit. I think these people taking profit while US dollar sort of just sort of attempts to sort of break down a little bit. I think the US dollar is going to break higher. I think this is going to roll over gold, and I think I'm still looking at 33.10. The sort of confirmations are going to be underneath 33.25. As you can see, they're sort of holding it. They did close. This was a little just a fake out, shakeout kind of thing yesterday. But I think that, the idea that they did it yesterday, they're going to look like they're going to do it again today. So you're going to trap. Because the thing is, basically, they just sort of trap people either way. So, people get short here. Oh, they squeeze it back up. Okay, anybody there? Boom, they're out, they're out, they're out, they're out. And then they can maybe make the move. Or likewise, it will be like people be sort of, oh, I'm so clever. Look, I bought it here and it sort of ran all the way through, or wherever. They didn't have to buy it down here. They just bought it on the rally up yesterday. Ah, here we go. It's doing it again. Rally up and there. No, they're going to get sort of long on this, and then that's when they'll sort of drive it down to sort of 33.10s, and they'll squeeze out those people. So it's really all just about sort of like mental games and that. It's funny because people that don't trade, they'll be like, oh yes, there's a conspiracy. There's of course there's people driving these things. What do you think these things are just randomly moving by themselves? That's why they have all the sort of textbook levels and textbook stops that they generally sort of chop out. So look, it's not 100% guaranteed that this is the time they're going to do it, but to me, that's the sort of theory behind it. That if you can sort of trap in some sort of people going short, because here we go, it was a nice little breakdown. I mean, if you have a look at this, like, well, you can't even see that. That's how quickly it moved. But this little move down here, 30 down to 25, and then shoots back up. Yesterday, what did we have? A nice little shoot down, bang, and then sort of grind it up all through Asia yesterday. So I think this will sort of, possibly sort of carry up here a little bit, but as I said, I do think we'll get US dollar probably moving a little bit higher, at least testing those highs that we had sort of on Thursday after PPI. I think that's a reasonable level for the market to be targeting, and I think as that sort of moves up higher, it's going to add a little bit of pressure to gold, and we're probably going to see gold sort of at least sort of move towards, sort of testing to get that breakdown towards sort of 33.10. All right, and moving on, we got silver. How's silver holding up? Silver's just chopping all over the place at the moment. So we got higher highs and higher lows. Sorry, there we go. Put this on here. Higher lows and lower highs. Clean up this one here a little bit. Um, Look, there's not really a great deal to sort of say with this at the moment, in my opinion. It's yeah, as you can see, it's just really sort of bounced, but it's just gone sideways with it all. So let's grab this. Yeah, to me, it's kind of like above these highs over here, below these lows over here. It is making a little bit of a sort of triangle through the middle, as you can see. But I think even if it does come down to these bottom sides here, I don't think that's enough for me to sort of say, hey, look, yep, you broke this little rising support here, because this is a very strong horizontal, and most recent highs, that's obviously going to play its part as well. Which I should probably see there's a little zone through here as well. Yep, so above 37.80, below 37.35. I think that's your direction there. I haven't traded silver for quite a while, actually, to be honest, and yeah, it just seems a little bit sort of too choppy for my sort of liking and stuff. In saying that, I predominantly pretty much trade Aussie, which is nothing but chop. But yeah, I think I'm still looking elsewhere for these things at the moment. But if I were to be trading, they're the two levels that I'd be looking at. Copper back down, back down, testing the bottom side. It's really sort of firming up this sort of little channel here. As I said, look, it looks like a bear flag, but I just don't. I just think this is too ridiculously sized to be a realistic sort of level. These are the kind of still levels that I'm looking at. That sort of rising support, which has come into play a couple of times, and then this is your big major one. If it goes underneath, excuse me, it goes underneath 405, we're going to see some big breakdowns in that. But for the time being, seems to be holding its little grind channel through here. Let's grab another one of these. It's almost exactly the same angle. Little triangle break retest. So I think topside, yeah, obviously you want to see this thing sort of break through this little falling resistance. Uh, if you want to see this thing move up a little bit higher. But otherwise, you've got the risk is obviously to the downside here. I think probably once this does break, you probably get at least a move down to sort of say 420, and possibly a test of sorry, 420. What am I talking about? 440, 440. Possibly a test down here, but I would say that's probably more realistically where you'd sort of look for some support to come in. I would disregard these weeks, even though they did come perfectly into that high time frame sort of support zone. I wouldn't be sort of targeting that. Certainly, that's the area to sort of to confirm the next breakdown. But if you're looking for a shorter term trade, I would sort of disregard the little wicks there. Just go for the body fill around 441.2. All right, and finally, just with China, still in its grind. These arrows all over the place, and it's not doing anything. 420 is 420. 720 is definitely still the top side that I'm sort of looking for. As you can see, just like everything else, it's just chopping sideways. I think we're going to have this really till probably, at least maybe the end of the month or so into start of next month. I did sort of see something that, I mean, obviously that's when they're coming back from holidays, but potentially you're going to see the markets position themselves so these larger sort of money makers and all these kind of funds or whatever can actually position themselves a little bit. Whether that be sort of like, because obviously, equity markets are still pumping at the highs, whether that is some sort of deeper sort of correction with that so they can actually sort of buy, like sort of buy at better levels, we'll have to sort of wait and see. But in theory, that would then sort of look, the market, you see the headlines coming out, oh no, the market's tanking and yada yada. It's definitely due for a pullback. Maybe that'll be the sort of catalyst that they'll say for the pullback. That, they won't say that, but that's what will be happening. And that'll sort of be at the same time that we'll see risk as a whole over the market take a little bit of a clipping. But that's just where I'm sort of forward thinking over the next month or so. All right, that's it from me.